For everyone here today, Arjun is the founder and, of course, ex-CEO of Dr. Vaidya's, an Ayurvedic brand that has revolutionized the Ayurvedic space in India very, very clearly. He's taken on the legacy of 150 years of Ayurveda from his grandfather before sort of starting the D2C side of Dr. Vaidya's in 2016, and of course has grown it along with a great team. And Trisha as well for it to become one of the biggest exits the industry has seen. Very recently, Dr. Vaidya's got acquired by one of the biggest corporate groups in India. And Arjun, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on board today. Like Sunil mentioned, a lot of questions we are all going to have, of course, but yes, I think.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm excited to be a part of this conversation and happy to see D2Scale come to life also. Very exciting.
Yeah, I think that was a name we were in fact contemplating over a period of time, but yeah, I think hopefully a lot to scale, definitely. But Arjun, I think honestly, the very, very first question that comes to my mind, and we'll take a few from the audience as well as we go. The question here is basically, we've seen so many startups get funded over the last, especially 2 years in this industry, D2C and otherwise, right? Both sides of it. But what is that one piece of advice you'd like to give founders who are just starting off? Like, I think should you really start off with the thought process of getting funded or moving to an exit stage? What is that idea that you'd like to put out there for everyone?
So that's actually the exact opposite of the advice I will give you. Don't start a company to get funded, to become a unicorn, to get featured in X newspaper, Y newspaper, get featured on X list or Y list. That's totally irrelevant to your journey. Start a business to solve a problem, right? And I think everything else will follow as it follows. A lot of people come to me and say, hey, you exited Dr. Vaidya's, we want to exit like you. Had I decided to exit Dr. Vaidya's when I started, I'd never been able to exit, right? So I think fundamentally build a business to solve a problem, right? So when we teach our D2C cohort as well, I say to ask yourself 3 questions as to why you're running a business. The first is, what's the problem? The second is, what's the solution or what's my solution? And the third is, why am I best placed to have the solution to this problem, right? Because there are problems which have solutions. Like for example, there's a lot of traffic on the road. The solution is a flying car, but I'm not placed well enough to build that flying car, right? So, I'm not the one who's going to solve that problem. Okay. So I think that's what I would say from a sort of step back perspective. Now a little bit more from a founder journey as well. I think 3 things I learned in my journey, which I didn't do enough as I started, and I learned through time. Number 1 is, it's like right now there's euphoria in relation to startups, right? Unicorns, funding, acquisitions, exits, Daman buying hundreds of businesses, etc., all of that. But the reality is that the journey is actually a roller coaster, and so what you read in the newspaper is only the positive. But you have to be able to fight failure with grit and resilience. Second thing is, I was a young founder. When I started, I was 24 and a half. And so I under-indexed on team, thinking I can solve everything myself. You can only compound a business if you have a strong team that's enabled and empowered. And the third thing is, startups are not hobbies. Like my podcast is a hobby, right? But my business was never a side project, side hustle, which when it scaled, I would leave this and go to that. And so I think you can't be slightly pregnant with a venture. You're either in or out. It's okay to be out, but if you're in, you got to be 100% in.
What was some of the thoughts that you went through when you all sort of started Dr. Vaidya's, of course, initially? Like, what were some of the hurdles that you all faced very early on?
So I put a LinkedIn post about this I think last week some point, right? It takes a while to hit inflection point, but when you hit inflection point, it's a crazy ride. Like it's hockey stick growth, right? And so you don't know how long it'll take to reach that inflection point. For us, it took 2 years to figure out what our scalable business model is. Like our D2C website, it took us 1 year of failing offline and 1 year of learning online to get to 50 orders a day. Everyone knows the Dr. Vaidya story of 5,000 orders a day, but no one was there when we were in 2017 doing 1 order every 3 days, and people were saying, hey, you're wasting your time on this, join your father's business. What are you doing this stuff for, right? So I think that's the biggest hurdle, like establishing a brand in the large country that we have. Look, everyone talks about the opportunity, 100 billion opportunity, 1.4 billion customers, 900 million smartphone users in India, etc., all of that. But look, there's that much clutter as well, right? And there's that many brands as well. So to cut through the clutter and to win in that space, it takes time, effort, energy, but a lot of patience. Lot of patience. Like today, like I remember a time when I was like, we used to get every order notification on our email, every single order notification. And I would dream one day like my email will be so flooded that I won't be able to read my email because we'll be getting so many orders. It took ages for that to happen. Like a really, really long time. When it happened, it was amazing, right? But it took a while for that.
Yeah, of course. I think for smaller startups, also just hearing that Shopify bell on your phone every time you get an order is a very, very big deal. So
yeah, exactly. We'd celebrate one order.
Yeah.
One order. I remember once LBB posted about Live It Up. I think this was 2017 or 2018. That day we got 30 orders. And we were like, wow, it's a game changer. We should tell LBB to post every day.
Right. Yeah, no, I think just thinking of that also, and I think we've sort of been a small part of the journey of Dr. Vaidya's as well. But even ever since, 2018, ever since we've connected, right before that 2016 when you all started, till date, how much do you think the D2C space has evolved? Like today, there are so many brands in this space. Would you say that, a pro, or how would you sort of picture that?
Yeah, so look, the advantage that we had in 2016 was if you came online to buy Ayurveda, you'd buy Dr. Vaidya's because there was nobody else. In 2017, we didn't do online in 2016. 2017 when we launched in November. From then on, for the first year, like there was only one brand, Dr. Vaidya's, was solely focused online. So if you came online, you bought us. But to convince you, Meghna, to come online and buy Ayurveda was a big task, right? So we spent a lot of time convincing the customer. When they got convinced, they came to buy us. Today, there are 10x, 15x the number of customers that there were in 2016, 2017 who will buy from D2C websites, right? Amazon marketplace platform customers, there were a lot. There are more now, but there were a lot. But D2C websites should build that trust to say, hey, will this guy even deliver the order? Like there's no chance he delivers, so I'm not going to buy from him. That's changed, right? And so I think from that perspective, there is a lot more customers. But let's say even if we say there are 100x the number of customers, just assuming a random number, there are also 10, 15x the number of brands. So if you were the only brand getting 15 rupees in sale, today there is 100 rupees of sale available, which is 7-8 times. But there are 15, 20 brands catering to that. And so if you take an average, you're getting 5 rupees in sale instead of 15. But if you win, you'll get 50 bucks because earlier there was only 15 bucks available. Now there's 50 bucks available. So we took 1 year to learn. You have 8 to 12 weeks to learn in terms of your basics, right? What's a website? What platform do you put your website on? How do you build your brand? Conversion rate optimization, Facebook, Google advertising, retargeting your customers, retention, supply chain ops, logistics, post-order experience, all of these things, you have 8 to 12 weeks to learn because if you don't learn in time, there is someone who will do it much better than you, much faster.
Correct. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's so many brands out there, but that sort of, I think probably people need to know what do they need to do differently for their brand to be the one that's winning. So there can be 20 brands who are still selling the same products in the personal care space. What do you think sort of helps one brand stand out from everyone else in that front?
Today, as much as you want to work on it, performance marketing is the easiest answer to any question and anyone can do it, right? And so the amount of people going on the platforms and using performance marketing has made the CPM and the CAC increase to a level where it's unsustainable.
Correct.
So what helps you win and get the ROI? And we discussed this so much, right? And at that time when we were doing it also, it's okay not to do so much. But today, without brand, community and top of the funnel, you will die.
Yeah.
You literally die as a brand, right? Because there's so much clutter. And so to build a strong community, to build an engaged community and to build a strong brand, that is critical. Just critical.
Correct. And for Dr. Vaidya's also, and in fact, all the brands that you're currently investing in, as well as we speak, when you think of branding, right, still a lot of brands are very averse to it. People don't think that branding sort of helps build your search volumes, build your brand search overall itself, right? Because performance marketing, like you said, can only help to a particular extent. What is, that one piece or maybe an experience you would like to share, even in terms of numbers from your experience in investing in brands or Dr. Vaidya's itself?
Look, I think in investing in brands, I have one philosophy in D2C: sales solves everything. So I have a podcast on D2C. In the first episode I recorded with Rohan Michandani, he said one thing which has stuck with me. He said, if customers take out rupees from their wallet and buy your product, that is when that's your moment of truth, right? And like, we philosophize a lot. We do a lot of FGDs, focus group discussions, product trials, sampling, testing, market research. But then the moment of truth is when the customer spends the money. And then he corrected himself that we are all good salespeople. So I can convince you, Meghna, to buy one of my products, you'll buy it. Because I'm sitting in the same room as you, I'm telling you I'm selling all of that, whatever, right? So I consider myself, I'm a good salesperson. But then, without me saying it, Meghna takes out money from a wallet the second time and buys the brand. That is key. And that is when a brand is really successful, not successful. And so I believe, for me at least as an investor, sales solves everything in D2C.
Got it. But you're saying basically long-term retention is sort of your LTV of customer retention is what...
We are running a business with a P&L, right? Like, everyone talks about all these consumer tech businesses burning a lot of money, etc. Like that. A D2C business is a normal FMCG business with a P&L. There is a average order value. There is a gross margin. There is a customer acquisition cost, logistics cost, and packaging/miscellaneous cost. At the end of that, you cannot be negative forever, right? And so that CM2, contribution margin that we talk about, fundamentally it has to be positive. And so, like, this is not a business you burn money through the rest of your life. This is a business which fundamentally is a normal old school business. Fine, you may burn money for a little bit of time, etc. Like that, but the P&L has to look like a normal business P&L.
Correct.
It's not one of those that I'm acquiring users, I don't mind the price, I'm acquiring users, I'll keep acquiring. And what's exciting about D2C and the secret sauce of D2C is, today you pay a customer acquisition cost to acquire the customer. But with D2C, you get rich data which you don't get with offline businesses. You get name, address, phone number, email address, and what product they bought. At least these five data points you get, right? And so you can cross-sell, upsell, and resell to this customer without anybody in between. And that's when you unlock your power, right? So if a customer comes back 3, 4, 5 times, you're making serious money from that customer.
Correct.
Even if you break even the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think from a retention perspective, are there like certain points you'd like to share with a lot of companies in the D2C space? I think a lot of, in fact, clients that we work with also focus on new user acquisition. Like you said, your LTV, your retention is what will sort of help that P&L actually move into a profit. So I think, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think very good question. Look, Meghna, I think like it's non-negotiable to do retention, because like if you're not doing it, then you're leaving money on the table. It's a customer who's bought your product, who's paid money, who's using your product, and you are not engaging with them again. So you cannot not do retention. I also see a lot of early stage brands use only email as retention. Look, my customer didn't even read email. Today, I don't have time to read my Gmail because I'm just spammed by brands. So I don't even read it. Yeah. So what are the other ways to engage with the customer? Email is one, but also push notification, SMS, WhatsApp, and call. And if you say I'm only doing email because my customer doesn't like getting a call, I thought my customer didn't like getting a call. I got 7x ROI on my calls at Dr. Vez, but my customer didn't like an email. He or she wanted a call. And so to be able to do retention integrated across channels, when my wife's lenses run out, I buy her lenses every month. Lenskart doesn't let me forget that the lenses have run out. WhatsApp, email, SMS, push notification, call, sab kuch aata hai. And as long as they do the call in the right, polite way, I actually don't feel bad when Lenskart calls once a month. Yeah. I hate it when the banks call for loans. I actually don't mind Lenskart calling. When Lenskart sends that email saying relationship status committed, I actually like smile when I get that email, right? So there's a right way to do it, and you have to crack that.
Got it. Yeah, I think some brands have cracked it, like probably a Swiggy, Zomato. We've seen like the works of everything, all the push notifications they send. It's very, very interesting. I think also one more thing brands are doing, I don't think it falls under retention directly, but a lot of brands have quizzes. And I think Dr. Vaidya's itself had doctor consultation, of course. But if you see a Man Matters, if you see a Bare Anatomy, if you see a newer brand, Traya, they all have quizzes on their website. Does that sort of also help? Is that where you see the space moving into customized format of products for people? Is that what they're looking for?
Look, those are very specific use cases for quizzes, right? They want to, it's like our dosha test on the Dr. Vaidya's website. You want to get to know something about you to sell your product. I don't think it works for all kinds of brands. It specifically works for personalized products or like long-term products where you need a consult. But otherwise, like I'm not doing a quiz to buy boat, and I'm not doing a quiz to buy Sleepy Owl, and I'm not doing a quiz to buy Whole Truth, and I'm not doing a quiz to buy Zimrat or Neiman's, right? So it depends on what the customer journey really is.
Got it. On another totally different angle, when you think of D2C, of course, we're thinking of building websites for brands, right? So key is to build your own website, direct sales on your website. But what about marketplaces? What is that split? Do you see it skewed towards marketplaces still? Will that continue to be the trend even in the future? Or will the website be key for all brands?
I say, don't decide, let your customer decide. There are certain categories customers buy on a brand website. There are certain categories customers more prefer on a marketplace.
Right.
Digital business, online business gives you data that tells you what the customer likes. So if your ROS is higher on marketplaces and your sales velocity is higher, the customer is telling you, hey, I don't want to buy on your website, I want to buy here. Does that mean you don't have a website? No, you always have a website. It's non-negotiable to not have both channels today. And it's so easy to launch, right? Like you have plug and play tools and solutions available, as Daman was saying. So it's non-negotiable to have both, but let your customer decide and let the data tell you the answer to the question.
Got it. Sure. Yeah, I think we've seen, obviously we've seen marketplace drive like really, really high. ROAS, of course, makes more sense, I think, in terms of numbers as well. But in terms of your website, I think if you sort of built it right with the right kind of platform, I think, of course, then works the best for the brand itself, right? Because you're making...
You know pros and cons of both, right? The marketplace has traffic, you have to bring traffic to your website. The marketplace won't give you data, they'll keep the data. On your website, you'll get all the data. So there are pros and cons, right. but you have to know what the pros and cons are when you get into.
Got it. That having been like online, what are your thoughts on offline? Do you think, so retail is anyway going to be a part of our everyday life. It's not like retail is going to shut down. Some brands, and a lot of brands, I think, for example, Sugar's opened so many offline retail stores, right? So keeping brands like that in mind, what is your take on online versus offline?
This is the biggest conversation happening in the D2C space now, right? Because everyone's like, oh, CACs are up, CPM is up. So now I'm reading tweets about people saying, hey, this D2C is all just like, it's just vanity and the real businesses are being built offline. Look, I'll tell you the reality, right? The reality is that I started offline and I failed miserably. Why did I fail miserably? If you're an early stage brand in offline, you're up against really, really large businesses that have really, really large resources. Offline is not direct sale, right? So you are a brand, you sell to a super stockist or a super distributor or a CNF, they sell to a distributor who sells to a retailer who sends to the customer, and then you get paid. And so I actually didn't get paid for 3 months, and then 3 months later I got 90% of my product returned, right? And why does this happen? Because it takes a lot to generate offtake on the retail shelves, right? Because there's very little discovery consumption done in India. Other than a food hall and an Nature's Basket and some of these bigger large format stores, you don't go and discover at a chemist shop. You don't go and browse at a chemist shop. You go and like with a prescription, or you go and ask for what's available and you move on from there, right? And so your brand has to generate pull. If you don't generate pull, you pay large listing fees, slotting fees, marketing fees, or visibility fees.
Yeah.
Plus you have to operate an offline sales force, right? So I had 22 sales reps in Bombay and I just started my business. And so I failed miserably because I couldn't generate offtake. I had no right to win. I had limited resources and my product came returned.
Correct.
Had I done it now, when Dr. Vaidya is so well known, it would have actually generated great offtake because there were retailers calling me when I reached 1,000, 2,000 orders a day saying, people are asking for a product, can you give it to us? Then at that stage, you have the negotiating leverage to negotiate the terms of trade with the offline retail channel. If you don't have that and you're an early stage brand, unless you're a really good operator who knows the space really, really well, and we're seeing that example with Jimmy's Cocktails, right? It's largely an offline brand, but they are savvy operators and so they figured it out. Unless you're really, really good, you will spend a lot of cost and you'll struggle, right? So that's my view on the way offline navigation should happen. Having said that, if you reach the stage of a mid-level or large-level D2C brand, demand is already coming. And so you go to the store and you say, I'll not pay you 35% margin, I'll pay you 30% margin. No listing fees, you want my product, take it. And in that situation, when customers are asking for it, they will take it.
Got it. So basically you reach a certain level in order to be able to make offline. That's the idea.
Until then, the D2C or online only operation is actually very capital efficient, right? Because you have a few warehouses, you have a central team, you have centralized stock, maybe you put it in 3-4 warehouses, but it's not gone to like 5,000 stores.
Right. Just another question top of mind. So what about selling to other countries, right? We're talking about D2C in India right now. What about products, example, a Dr. Vaidya's or a Sugar or a Sleepy Owl selling to different countries? What's your take on that?
So I don't have a take on that, but I asked the same question to Harsh Mariwal on my podcast. And he said that your product has to have a right to win. And so an Ayurveda, a chai, and Indian spices, Indian ethnic wear, specific handicraft products, you don't get them anywhere else in the world, and so we have a right to win there. If you're selling a lipstick or a health and wellness product that's non-Ayurvedic, you're up against people who are experts at it. And so unless you have a right to win or a unique differentiator in your product, it may be challenging in developed markets. Maybe, but I don't know the answer yet.
Got it. Yeah, Indian ethnic, like you said, Indian spices, anything Indian, authentically Indian.
That will win. The other products, you're up against people who are obviously
in the space.
Have been there in that market for longer, so you have to find your right to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think Sunil, you want to step in?
Yeah, I have lots of questions for Arjun as well. I think Arjun, you've obviously moved on from being a founder of a D2C company now to investor at Verlinvest. Looking back, as an investor lens, did you miss out on some points as a founder?
Lots of things.
So,
lots of things.
What are the top 2-3, which founders should be aware of?
Yeah, I'll tell you. Look, I didn't invest in brand early enough. Started that too late in my journey. Had I known better, I would have done differently. Number 2, didn't invest in retention early enough, which is why I say it's non-negotiable. It's pretty scientific, actually, if you get down to it. And so I learned retention only in 2019, 2020. Scientifically, the way I know it today, right? So that's number 2. And number 3, as I said, I think we didn't invest in team early enough.
Sure. Do you want to elaborate a bit on 2? Very interesting, retention, scientifically, how should...
You have to have a flow, right? Let's say, for example, a customer abandons a cart. We were random. We would call the customer some days, not call the customer some days. Then when we built a flow, it was like, okay, customer abandons cart. You have to WhatsApp the customer within 15 minutes automatically. Then email the customer within 1 hour. If they don't reply, 6 hours later, you give them a discount code. 12 hours later, you give them a higher discount code. Then you SMS. Then you send a push notification. Then you call. And then 2 days later, you call again. That flow, scientifically foolproof structure, needs to be there across cross-sell, upsell, resell, abandoned cart. It's scientific. We didn't know that, right? And I think all of these things now, everyone knows it now because D2C has evolved in India. We were like reading case studies in the US, trying to learn, use tools, etc. All of that. So things are now much more developed than they were then.
I think still a lot of teams are not using marketing automation, right? Are there some best tools which you have found, Arjun, which you recommend?
Yeah, look, I think there are multiple tools, right? Web Engage, Mo Engage, Wixo, Clever Tap, Notify Visitors. You got to find what works for you, but all of these tools will solve for this. You have to put the effort yourself to build the flows, etc. All of that. The logic on how a customer will behave, nobody can teach. You have to know that yourself.
No, absolutely. I think as we were starting D2Scale, we did a survey of founders and teams, and very few are today using marketing automation. It's email us, but that automation for different users.
Before this, I was on call with the founder. She's like, yeah, I have a 40% open rate on my emails. I do nothing else. I said, well, look at that. That's potential for you, right?
No, absolutely, Arjun. I think the other area was on the creator economy, right? We've been discussing offline a bit on that. Do you see that become a key part of brand building and performance as well going forward for D2C brands?
What's the challenge today? The challenge today is that CPMs and CACs are very high. And so if you use the Facebook and Google audience only, which everybody else is using, you will pay that CAC. And so what's the way to be able to not pay that CAC is to be able to build an engaged community, use the power of thought leaders, and also have high retention. These are the only ways for you to get rid or stay away from this high CAC. So you have to do all of it.
I think like a lot of brands, like especially in the beauty space, have started now using creators both for top funnel and performance. Any best practices there? Is it being overdone?
I've seen that like you have to look at the data, right? So like if you use, I see a lot of brands say, hey, I want to do 500 influencers, micro influencers on barter. Okay, but what happened with that 500? You got 500 stories to put on your account and so you felt good about yourself? Not relevant, right? So yeah, I used X influencer. This is the reach I got. This is the engagement I got. This is the website clicks I got. This is the conversions I got. Should I go back to the influencer or not? Put a hypothesis, see the data, and then go back. It's we're running an online business. It's scientific, right? So I think that's how to think about it.
No, absolutely. I think when influencer not a plug, but I think like that's kind of the problem we're trying to solve, because even if you work with like say 500 creators for your next campaign, which are the creators which you should be working with and which should you drop, right? So that science, not most brands are not deploying it today at scale. I think on the international part, Arjun, like you are mentioning on, the Indian-centric brands like Ayurvedas or the teas have an opportunity over there. From a market research perspective, for founders who are looking to expand internationally, how do you see that happening? Like consumer insights, both of those look like weak points in the Indian ecosystem.
I'm not so like when we teach our D2C cohort as well, like a lot of people say, hey, can I get access to this Red Seer report and this Euromonitor report and all? I'm like, go to Amazon, see the number of reviews, multiply them by 35 to 40, because on average 1 in 35 to 40 consumers review. You know how much that product has sold. And you then, on every listing on Amazon, you see the launch date of the product. So you get a sense of how much revenue that product is doing. That will give you when you multiply the top, you get the top 10 products in the space, their data, and then you're pretty much like, what's happening, right? So I would say use first party data or like easily available data to start your conversation. And obviously there are tools, right? If you're looking at research on the marketplace, Seller app, Jungle Scout, Helium 10, all these tools exist, right? So use them and they're free or almost free, freemium.
No, absolutely. I think like a lot of founders are now getting more hands-on, and I think we have a young breed of entrepreneurs as well, right? Especially after Shark Tank 2. I think even before that, I think we're seeing that transformation in smart people starting D2C brands and being committed to a longer journey. Personally, for you, after exiting, how's your personal life been? As an investor now, and I know you're very active in the ecosystem, supporting many.
Not as stressful as being a founder, for sure. So, not as stressful.
Blood pressure under control.
I see Ruchi on the session already. She has got so many panic calls from me. So, and so have you guys. So, no, I think not so stressful. But look, it's nice for us to give back, share our learnings. We're enjoying that. But yeah, I get to sleep at night.
Yeah, and how is it? I think like since you are doing this with your spouse as well, like any special moments?
There's a TED talk coming on this hopefully this week.
Right.
Because a lot of people have asked us this. It's an amazing journey for us. Look, I think it's not for everyone. It's a really immersive experience. You spend a lot of time together, but I wouldn't have done it any other way. So now we don't work together, and yeah, I miss it as well.
Right. No, definitely. I think it's great to see that. And obviously, it takes a special couple to make it happen. So, you guys are. So, thank you, Arjun. It's been amazing catching up with you. And as always, super high energy and contribution to the ecosystem as well. Really appreciate that.